Good morning. It is 9:02, and I call to order the July 25th session of the Special Magistrate proceeding for the City of Daytona Beach. My name is Robert Riggio. I will be serving as Special Magistrate this morning, and I will be hearing cases as they appear on the agenda. There will be a slight change in the order, but we'll get to that under the announcements. Essentially, we have two sets of cases this morning. We have some lien reviews, and then we have some cases for determination. Appears all three of them are irreparable and irreversible. And in those cases, I will ask that the respondents in those matters please come forward and state your name and your relationship to the party that is referenced, and then be sworn in if you intend to give testimony. At which time the city staff will then come forward and present their particular findings regarding these matters, and then you'll be given opportunity to respond. And then I will take into consideration anything else that arises thereafter and hopefully make a finding with respect to each of those matters. So, having said that, our next item on the agenda are announcements, and the announcements are essentially, from my end, just a slight change in the order as it appears on the agenda. We will be hearing lien review 1 and 2 first, and then we will move to case number 2, RTL 06-2342, Stoza, Inc., and take that out of order, and then we will return back to lien review 3 and the case 1 and case 3 under the continued cases. All right. I have approved the June 27th, 2023 meeting minutes, and at this point it would probably be a good time to swear in any city staff that are going to be giving testimony this morning.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay, let's start with the lien reviews. First one, and these are sort of connected, so lien review 1, RTL 01-2204, 210 North Peninsula, Calvary Global Ministries, Inc., who had been cited for violations. And they are now in compliance, or were subsequently in compliance, but a fine had been issued, and a fine in an amount of $15,640.34 had amassed on that lien. And so, Mr. Reckenzone, who's going to present for
Were you
the...
sworn in when staff was sworn in? No. Okay, I need to state your name, please.
Angela Armstrong.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
Thank you.
Okay. I believe both of the individuals in front of me this morning are work for the City of Daytona Beach. So who's going to present in this one? Mr. Reckenzone?
I am, sir. We met with staff and we agreed to recommend a reduction of lien 1 will be reduced to $7,500, and lien 2 would be reduced to $15,000.
Mr. Reckenzone, I'd like to just take each one of them separately.
Okay, absolutely, sir.
So first one is, the recommendation is $7,500?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And my understanding is the city is now in owner of the property as part of its CRA, was that?
Yes, sir. It's correct.
Can you fill me in on the particulars of?
Yes.
State your name just so it's.
Angela Armstrong, Redevelopment Department.
Thank you.
So the city commissions approved the purchase of that property. We went into contract, and doing the due diligence, we find out that they had the liens. So we went to an agreement, and we agreed that to reduce the fines by 50%. But we closed on the property already,
Okay.
so it's city-owned now.
All right. And is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this? Um, I have no problem with that, so therefore, in case number RTL 01-2204, Calvary Global Ministries, Inc., for property at 210 North Peninsula, I hereby order the lien in that case to be reduced to the amount of $7,500, subject to being paid within 30 days, or the fine will revert back to the original amount. And if you could pass on to the respondent that if they run into any problems, to contact the city, so that they don't lose this lien reduction, because it will revert back if that's not paid.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Second matter is lien review 2. This is case number SMG 06-19-121, property at 210 North Peninsula. And I see this also was previously owned by Calvary Global Ministries, Inc. Again, they were cited for various violations on the property. And in this instance, the amount of the fine that had been imposed had amassed to, with interest and the fees and everything, to the amount of $29,639.68. Again, Mr. Reckenzone, can you?
Yes, sir. We, as the city, met with staff and agreed to recommend a reduction of lien review 2 for $15,000 to include interest and recording fees.
Okay. So, but they're responsible, currently it's 15,000 or 20, it is 29,000, so there would be roughly 15,000 would still be due from the respondent.
Correct.
Okay. And ma'am, if you could fill me in on the city's position regarding
Well,
this?
it's the same. We agree to reduce the fines by 50% in that case as well.
Okay.
And just for the record, we have the money on escrow, so that was part of the agreement.
So it'll be paid
It
within
will
30
pay,
days?
yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Anyone else who wishes to speak to this? All right.
Yeah, if I can have one. We're fine.
Okay. Therefore, in case SMG 06-19-121, the respondent, having been Calvary Global Ministries, Inc., for property at 210 North Peninsula, hereby order the lien in that case be reduced to $15,000, subject to being paid within 30 days, or the fine will revert back to the original amount. And you have anything further to add?
No, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
Then, as I had previously stated, we will now skip in the agenda to case number 2, RTL 06-2330-42, Stoza, Inc., who was cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code, Article 4, Section 4.1A, Article 5, Section 5.2.8.3 at 932 Pelican Bay Drive. Ma'am, are you here to speak on behalf of Stoza? Pelican Bay. Is anyone here going to speak on behalf of Stoza, Inc., the respondent in this matter? There's no one here on behalf of the respondent.
No, I just need to swear in the witness.
Okay. Ma'am, if you're going to speak as a witness, you will need to be sworn in.
You can step up to the microphone and state your name, please.
Michelle Skarwecki.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Golicky, since there is no additional person, you're welcome to go to the other. And yeah, you can move that as necessary.
Okay. Mr. Yates, can you present the city's position in this matter?
Inspector Kevin Yates, Code Compliance. My credentials are on file. Yes, the case before you is a zoning violation. This case was opened as citizen's complaint. The property is zoned PDG. Other accommodations known as short-term rentals are not permitted in this zoning district. The violation was first observed May 3rd, 2023, and they were first notified the same day. The property is still actively advertising as of today. The daily posted rate for the advertisement was $660. It displayed 6 reviews. The check-in, check-out time were shown as 4 p.m. and 11 a.m. This is the second time this owner has been in violation of the zoning ordinance, the previous case being RTL 03-2321 on March 28, 2023. These actions are irreparable and irreversible in nature, and due to the actions of the property owner, we're requesting a one-time fine of $15,000. In addition to that, we also have a local resident who'd like to testify as part of the issue as well.
Okay. Mr. Yates, I didn't catch, are they advertising on one of the short-term rental websites?
Yes, they are on Airbnb as of today still.
Okay.
Hi, I'd like to add to that. They're on several feeder sites that feed into Verbo also. They get ratings on there. They've been rated a 10. Stan is the best host ever. It was great that we were able to stay here for our friend's wedding. That was in April. They are currently advertising. I went online last week and attempted to rent, but that weekend was already booked. They're available this week. This gentleman has been approached by our manager on multiple occasions and talked to about this. His first excuse was that he's a minister and he lets his missionaries stay there for free. His missionaries show up for big events like Bike Week, Jeep Week, stuff like that, in addition to other weekends. He also tells the neighbors that basically his house is set up in a way that no one can touch it and no one can stop him from doing what he's doing. On behalf of Pelican Bay, we really appreciate what the city's doing, and we really hope that you guys finally put an end to this guy.
Okay. Ma'am, are you a resident of Pelican?
I am a resident. I'm the current president of the board for Pelican Bay.
Okay. I was wondering when you said speaking on behalf of
Oh,
Pelican
sorry.
Bay.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Okay.
And we also, I mean, in the audience, we also have a resident, a neighbor of this, and the vice president of Pelican Bay also.
Okay. Mr. Jackson, I think it would be appropriate now for you to state the city's position regarding irreparable and irreversible. And one thing I would like to ask you, under the city's ordinances, is the holding out of property for rental considered a violation?
Yes, it is. Mr. Riggio, Anthony Jackson, attorney for the city. In fact, and I know I don't do this in every case, but this has become one of the things we look at when we start looking for our maximum fine is the gravity of the violation, and this is one that, based on the history that we have and what's in your book for review, it would show that everything that's being described is consistent with what we heard previously, and it appears to be something that this person is insistent on continuing without us taking necessary actions. So I will submit for the record the city's position regarding the advertising being prohibited as we walk ourselves through the statute. And I just present that as part of the record to go into the file. And then I would share the city's position as it relates to our request that this be deemed a, okay, I guess I'll present.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
You need to just give it back.
Sure.
And I'll present to you and anyone else that happens to be listening. I believe we have maybe one on Zoom, but or anyone else in the audience. The city's position as it relates to our request that you make a finding that this is irreparable and irreversible in nature. And I don't know if you want me to pause while you review that, the document you have in hand. I know you've heard this numerous times before.
I've heard it, and I just want to look at it again, because what I'm hearing especially troubles me is someone who has been here before, has gone through the the process and is back again. Um, I see
Our
the word
principal,
offered for rent,
yes.
or in another part, I see advertised or held out to the public for rent.
Yes, in that very first sentence on there is,
That's 4 rental units, or, well, 4 rental units or less. This
right.
is-
But also on that very first sentence, it references our section that adopts the portion of our code that where we've adopted our historic requirements and as other accommodations, and part of that definition included the statutory provisions under Chapter 562, and part of those statutory provisions are what's cited that recognizes
Yeah.
property being held out for rent.
I seem to recall that we went through this same dialogue
Yes,
when I believe the respondent was here previously.
very likely.
And so, okay.
So as it
You can
relates,
proceed.
yes, as relates to the city's position regarding the finding that these violations are irreparable and irreversible in nature, as expressed by the statute, the city states that the nature of the violations are the following. There's a beneficial gain to property owners that are advertising the conduct that is prohibited by our code. The effects of holding our property as vacation rental is irreversible. The property is advertised worldwide, marketing a destination that draws people from all over the world for principal special events such as the Daytona 500 races, the Bike Week, and of course our spring break, our world's most famous beach. In addition, the properties also draw people marketing nearby destinations such as Disney World and the Space Coast. Once the properties are advertised, they're never unadvertised. The reality of the World Wide Web is that you cannot push advertisement back into the tube. Information that is posted today can be printed, forwarded, retweeted, and even copied, pasted on other sites. And after being taken down for the primary source, it's still even accessible in producing rental inquiries. Facebook data, and even more recently, as I've looked in the most current, says that over 2.8 billion people worldwide can be connected for business advertising online. And so a conservative amount between 10 million and a billion are reached through these vacation rental advertising. The information has long-range effects. It lures patrons under contract to participate in unlawful stays in our city with risk of poor health, poor safety, and welfare due to unregulated or self-regulated vacation accommodations that patrons enter into at their own risk. One single day of advertisement can potentially book a property for the whole year. These promised stays are potentially to the detriment of the patron, and they're definitely to the detriment of the licensed hotels, motels, and lawful vacation rentals that have gone through proper zoning regulations, proper inspections, proper licensing, proper insurance, and proper taxation required by law. The transient nature of rentals limit the means of enforcement, typically for our inspectors to identifying the advertisements. By the time code enforcement arrives to properties, the transient patrons typically are gone from the property, or they claim some misleading relationship that are often contradicted by the advertisers' visitors' comments. The monetary effect of these unlawful rentals is tax avoidance, but not only that, inadequate insurance coverage, unfair business competition against the lawful accommodations businesses and the lawful vacation rentals. The community effect is that transient business use within unauthorized residential neighborhoods affect the density, the parking, noise, and safety. They affect the peaceful enjoyment expected in residential neighborhoods. They diverge from the traditional and reliable residential norms. There is a demand, and there has been a demand from the business community to our city commission. which has led to a request for strong deterrent to those that are raking in profits, avoiding state and local taxes, avoiding zoning requirements and regulatory controls. We've all seen rentals going for amounts as much as several $1,000s a week and realize that substantial fines are the only deterrent tool available. By the time we arrive and say stop, the beneficial gains are already realized. State law adopted by the city defines vacation rentals to include advertising for transient guests. Therefore, the city requests a finding that these violations are irreparable or irreversible in nature, as provided by the statute. Also, as it relates to the fine itself, our statute and ordinances provide for the magistrate to look at the gravity of the violation, the effort of the respondent to comply with our code, and the history of the violation or the history of the respondent. In this case, all of those are clearly negative and will clearly justify the maximum fine in this case, which will be $15,000. Therefore, we ask for a $15,000 fine to be imposed. I will state as well, Mr. Magistrate, that this may be the last time we'll come in on this case and ask just for a $15,000 fine. What we anticipate in the future is with supporting testimony from the neighbors of the additional renters throughout the period, that we would probably do a separate case for each one and bring those before and ask for a $15,000 fine on each case.
Okay.
And I don't have anything further regarding.
All right. Ma'am, do you have anything further to add?
No, I don't. Thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. Yates, do you have anything further to add?
No, sir.
Okay. And seeing the respondent, has the respondent been notified of this morning's hearing?
Okay. I believe this is one we had to continue at their request.
It was continued.
Okay.
It was continued from from last month, June the 27th. Sorry. It was continued from June the 27th. We do have green cards that were signed. So yes, they have been.
And the respondent had requested the continuance, my
Correct.
recollection.
Correct. And we have both the registered agent, Mr. Smith, Stanley J. Smith, and the corporation.
Okay. Well, taking all of these factors into consideration, the fact that we are looking at a second violation by the respondent, who, if I recall, was present.
He was.
I think it was by Zoom, but still present.
No, he was in.
He was here?
He was.
Okay. The respondent is certainly aware of the city's position regarding this and had an opportunity. Did the respondent take any action after the first violation?
Originally, the ad was taken down, but
Okay.
shortly they put it back up.
Okay.
With
But in terms of taking any kind of appeal or anything,
the only other major difference I would say is that they, in the pictures, they obscured the address number in the new pictures they added.
Okay.
So they tried to hide it.
okay,
Here's the minutes where he was.
all right. But and this is more to Mr. Jackson, they didn't take an appeal on the first one.
That's correct. They did not. So, yeah, the appeal period for the initial one is run, and of course, that's a right they have.
Correct.
We believe it on solid legal grounds.
Okay, well, taking all of the facts, circumstances, the fact that we're here on a matter that has been presented before and they've been fined on before, I can only come to one conclusion, and that is that they are in violation of this
Mr.
section.
Riggio, I just need to correct myself. They did appear via Zoom. I'm looking at the minutes now.
Yeah, I seem to remember that.
Sorry.
All right, well, therefore, in case number 2, RTL 06-2342, the respondent being Stoza Inc., I find the respondent to have been in non-compliance of Article 4, Section 4.1.a, and Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibit short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals, and that such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and the damage to the surrounding neighborhood occurs at the time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D Florida statutes for the property at 932 Pelican Bay Drive. It has not come into compliance, and hereby order that respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $15,000 and shall cease violating that section of the Land Development Code and not violate it again, and that for any future repeat violation, the respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for a hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. And at this time, that's
Thank you very much.
we
We
can
appreciate it.
due based upon these facts
you.
and the evidence presented. All right, we will now go back to the lien reviews. As I said before, we're taking things a little bit out of order, and we're going to lien review 3, RTL 01-2303, 331 Taylor Avenue. The respondents being Anil Maharaj and Uginder Maharaj, who were cited for failure to correct violations of city code, failure to obtain a rental license. This is the long-term rental license, not short-term.
Correct, sir.
And there is a fine on the property. There was compliance as of June 1, 2023, and the fine that had amassed along with the recording fees was a total of $1,874. Okay.
Could you state your name, please?
My name is Silvio Matri.
And your relationship to,
I'm the property manager, and Mr. Neal is with me today.
okay. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I have read through the materials which you provided. And Mr. Reckenzone,
Yes, sir.
if you can provide the city's position. Well, maybe what I need to do is first, Mr. Matri, do you want to say anything first because it is your client's request, or Mr.
We already, we already had a conversation
All right.
in regards.
Mr. Reckenzone?
Yes, sir. We've already met with the property manager, and we agreed to recommend a reduction to $1,500.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, on behalf of the property owner has been accepted.
Okay. That's what I like to see is the way that these can be worked out rather than me trying to have to
That's,
split babies and things of that nature. It's
Yeah,
easier
that's-
when you all do it that way. And I know the request had been to remove the fine, and I was not prone to do that anyway based upon the record of this matter. But coming
Yeah,
to
we
an
came to a
accommodation
good
such as this,
compromise,
I
yes.
think it's a good outcome.
yes.
So therefore, I'm in agreement with that. I have no problem. And therefore, in lien review 3, RTL 01-2303, property being at 331 Taylor Avenue, property respondent, property owner Anil Maharaj and Uginder Maharaj, I hereby order the lien in that case number to be reduced to the amount of $1,500, subject to being paid within 30 days, or the fine will revert back to the original amount. And again, I always make this caveat: if you run into any problems, contact Mr. Jackson or Mr. Reckenzone and tell him you've run into
I
a problem.
believe the address is correct now. I believe there will be normal issues in communication.
Very good.
All right,
Thank you.
all set?
Mhm.
I believe the first case is on Zoom.
Okay. We now move back to the hearing of cases, and we start with case number 1, RTL 06-2340, Chico Property Management LLC, cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code Article 4, Section 4.1.a, Article 5, Section 5.2.8.2 at 110 Mason Park Drive. Is there a respondent present?
Yes, could you state your name, please? I think,
Yes,
go ahead.
yeah. Mitchell Gertler and Jacqueline Gertler.
And say her name a little slower.
Jacqueline Gertler.
Gotcha. Raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, the case before you is a zoning violation.
Can we ask their relationship?
Oh, sorry.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
What is your relationship to Chico Property Management?
We're the managers,
Okay.
LLC.
We want to make sure that you can speak on behalf of this entity.
I understand.
Mr. Yates, can you present the city's position on this matter?
The case before you is a zoning violation. This case was field generated. The property is zoned SFR 5. Other accommodations known as short-term rentals are not permitted in the zoning district. The violation was first observed May 17, 2023, and they were first notified the same day. The property was not actively advertising as of May 30th, 2023. The daily posted rate was $201. The advertisement displayed 5 reviews. The check-in, check-out time were shown as 4 p.m. and 11 a.m. These actions are irreparable and irreversible in nature, and due to the actions of the property owner, the city is requesting a one-time fine of $1,000.
Okay. Mr. Jackson, do you have anything to say on behalf of the city?
I'm sorry, I did not get your last names.
Gertler, G-U-E-R-T-L-E-R.
Mr.
Mitchell.
Ergler. I am
Yes.
Anthony Jackson. I'm the attorney for the city of Daytona Beach. I previously presented to the magistrate a position regarding irreparable and irreversible in nature. The request that these cases be considered irreparable and irreversible pursuant to the Florida statute. Is that something you heard while you were there on waiting for your Zoom case? And if it is it something you need me to repeat? Or
No.
is it something you're willing to waive?
We did hear you, and yeah, we've been on since the beginning, so we understand.
Okay, and are you, I guess we need to know whether you formally waive the reading of this again or the presentation of that
Yes.
position?
We
Okay,
formally waive it, yes.
great,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Let the record reflect the respondents have waived the, Mr. Jackson repeating what he previously, repeating the city's position on irreparable and irreversible as he had previously presented in case number 2, RTL 06-2342. All right.
And just for the record, the nature of these violations are nothing compared to what we were looking at in the prior case. And I think our request is solely for the $1,000, which has been a routine minimum from you, Mr. Magistrate, for someone that quickly responds. And apparently from the presentation of our inspector, they indeed quickly responded, and that's our recommendation.
Okay. Do you have anything further, Mr. Yates?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you have anything you wish to say?
Yes, Your Honor.
Gerbler?
Gertler. It just sounds
Ger-
fancy with the U. Forget the U is there, and it's easier.
Okay.
Gertler.
Okay. If you have anything to say, this is your opportunity to say.
Yes,
the
sir.
city has asked me to impose a fine of $1,000 as been done in other matters where the respondents respond quickly. And if you have anything to say, this is your, like I said, your opportunity.
Yep, absolutely. The only thing I would say is I'm hoping to get it reduced. We did respond immediately right when we found out, as Mr. Yates would tell you. we weren't aware. When we did, we took it down and everything. This property has been, we're just financially strapped because no one's been rented there since the hurricane. We had full-time renters in there, and that's when there was problems. So we've actually put all our money in to remodel this place twice when we took it over, which was originally for my daughter and her husband, but they ended up in Merritt Island, so we ended up with this. We remodeled it. The hurricane came, and we had to put all our money in it again. So we were trying to rent it on medium length time and get another long-term person in there. It just didn't work. So it hasn't been making money. We've been hemorrhaging ever since. We're trying to sell it now. It's on the market, but so I'm hoping you'll be a little lenient with $1,000, just tight right now.
I'd be happy to speak to that, Mr. Riggio. The position of the city is that, as you know, now it's been a few years that we have been enforcing this and strictly enforcing it. And our initial posture had been that every violation was a $15,000 violation because of the manner in which it impacted our city as a city that was very reliant and dependent upon rental properties and the proper compliance with our codes in terms of the things that I've mentioned through our when I made my presentation concerning the irreparable reversible. With that being said, our position has been one that was substantial, and over time you brought us into a milder state, which resulted in us acknowledging and accepting the willingness that someone who has acted quickly get a substantial reduction down to the $1,000 amount. And unfortunately for us, measuring someone's sincerity, honesty, circumstances are something that we're very limited in our ability to do. By consistency, we are able to do, and that's what we just ask for. And much of it is just trying to not put ourselves in a position of catch me if you can, and people who are operating in such a manner until we come upon them, even though they respond quickly, it would not necessarily be our best deterrent for an activity that we've made clear over the years that it's something that's not allowed in this city.
Okay. Do you have any response to that, other than what you had previously stated?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
No.
Well,
Except that we weren't there years ago, so I don't know the city's limit. You know, we just got there, but no response really.
I think that Mr. Jackson has sort of very well summarized the position. I have in the past, the city had asked for much more due to the gravity of these violations, and I felt that it was appropriate for it to be, the fine to be reduced for those individuals who acted quickly, recognizing that still the cat is out of the bag when people start renting the property, and the city is not in a position to really, or at least so far I have been unable to see a way of trying to distinguish between those people who act quickly but have been benefiting from this activity and those who are not. And my fallback has been on certain guidelines that were drawn up by the Federal Department of Justice with respect to what they called economic crimes, and trying the way to try to institute a fine in those, and that is to have a fine and be consistent in its application, because the facts as they relate to reductions cannot be proven or disproven, and that puts me in the position of trying to assess the factual content of what's said without really having any basis for it. And so therefore, I will be imposing a $1,000 fine in this matter. So therefore, in Case number 1, RTL 062340, respondent being Chico Property Management LLC. I find the respondent to have been in noncompliance of Article 4, Section 4.1.a, and Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibit short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals, and that such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and the damage to the surrounding neighborhood occurs at the time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D Florida statutes for the property at 110 Mason Park Drive, and to have subsequently come into compliance on May 30, 2023, and hereby order that respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $1,000 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again. And if for any future repeat violation, the respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for a hearing before a special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Case number 3, RTL 062343, Brandon Garcia, cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code, Article 4, Section 4.1.a, Article 5, Section 5.2.a.3 at 2016 North Oleander Avenue. Is Mr. Garcia present on Zoom?
Yes.
I am.
Could you
Okay.
state your name, please?
Brandon Garcia.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Yates.
All right, the case before you is a zoning violation. This this case was a citizen's complaint. The property is zoned SFR 5. Other accommodations known as short-term rentals are not permitted in this zoning district. The violation was first observed May 26, 2023, and they were notified the same day. The property was not actively advertising as of May 30th, 2023. The daily posted rate was $648, and the advertisement displayed 3 reviews. It showed a check-in, check-out time of 4 p.m. and 10 a.m. These actions are irreparable and irreversible in nature. Due to the actions of the property owner, the city is requesting a one-time fine of $1,000.
Could you tell me not actively advertising after?
May 30th.
May 30th, yes. Mr. Jackson.
Garcia, I'm Anthony Jackson. I'm attorney for the City of Daytona Beach. I have previously presented to the magistrate a position of the city as related to our request that these violations be found to be irreparable and irreversible in nature, as provided in Florida Statute, Chapter 162.09. First question would be, were you online and were you able to hear that presentation? And if the answer is yes, you were, the next question would be, do you need it repeated, or is it something you're willing to waive? And that's my question.
The question for me?
Yes.
What is the question? I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Let me try to rephrase that, I think. Mr. Garcia, Mr. Jackson in the previous matter, or actually in the original matter, case number 2, with respect to Stoza Inc., had presented the city's position regarding irreparable and irreversible. If you were watching the previous matter, you will see that the respondents in that matter, rather than have him read it into the record again, had waived that. And his question is, one is whether you had heard his presentation in that earlier case, and 2, whether you were willing to waive him going through it again. Otherwise, he will, I assume.
I did not hear that. If you could go over that again.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well, Ms. Magistrate, the city's position, as previously stated, is that these violations are irreparable and irreversible in nature as provided in Chapter 162.09, subsection 1D of Florida statute. And the reason we make the request that you make this finding is because of the nature of the violations are as follows. The benefits you gain to the property owner, advertising and the conduct that is prohibited by the code, and that affects the effects of holding our property as vacation rental is irreversible. The property is advertised worldwide, marketing a destination that draws people from all over the world for principal special events such as the Daytona 500, Bike Week, the world's most famous beach, our spring break. The property is also marketed as a draw to nearby destinations such as Disney World and the Space Coast. Once the property is advertised, they're never unadvertised. The reality is you can't push it back into the tube. Once it's out, it can be printed, posted, forwarded, retweeted, even copied and pasted on other sites. Facebook data says that over 2.5 billion people worldwide can connect to businesses on the internet. Conservative estimate for short-term rental advertising is between 10 million to 1 billion are reached through vacation rental advertising. The information has long-range effects. It lures patrons from under contract to participate in unlawful stays in our city with risk of poor health, safety, welfare, due to unregulated and self-regulated vacation accommodations that the patrons enter into at their own risk. On one single day of advertisement can book a property for a whole year. These promised stays are potentially to the detriment of the patron, and they're definitely to the detriment of the licensed hotels, motels, and lawful accommodation rentals that have gone through proper zoning regulations, proper inspections, proper licensing, proper insurance, and proper taxation that's required by law. The transient nature of these rentals limit the means of the enforcement typical to identifying advertisements. By the time our code inspector enters or arrives to properties, the transient patron typically is gone from the property, or they claim some misleading relationship that are often contradicted by their visitors' comments later. The monetary effect of these unlawful rentals is tax avoidance, inadequate insurance coverage, unfair business competition against the lawful accommodation businesses and the lawful vacation rentals. The community effect is that transient business use within unauthorized residential neighborhoods affect density, parking, noise, and safety. They affect the peaceful enjoyment expected in residential neighborhoods. They diverge from traditional and reliable residential norms. The city has received demands from the business community, and so our commission has requested strong deterrents to those who are raking in profits and avoiding state taxes and local taxes, avoiding zoning requirements and regulatory controls. We have all seen rentals going for amounts as much as several $1,000s a week and realize that substantial fines is the only deterrent tool available. By the time the city arrives and says stop, the beneficial gains to the violator are already realized. State law adopted by the city defines vacation rentals to include advertising for transient guests. Therefore, the city requests a finding that these violations are irreparable or irreversible in nature, as provided by the statute. And in this case, the inspector has indicated that this respondent responded immediately upon notification, so the city is not asking for the maximum fine, as we have in prior case, in at least one prior case today, but we're asking for what you have, Mr. Magistrate, has issued as your minimum fine, which is $1,000. So we're asking that a $1,000 fine be imposed in this case.
Thank you. Mr. Yates, do you have anything further to add?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Garcia, it's now your opportunity to speak on this matter.
Yeah, so I just want to say a few points about what we just heard. I responded immediately, like literally within 2 hours. Me receiving notification of what I was doing was wrong, I complied immediately. So I would challenge the fact that I did irreparable harm to the city or the neighborhood, because the city's position is that once it's out on the internet, it's out there forever. Well, if that's the case, please show me where my ad is somewhere out there on the internet, because it's not. If it is, I would love for someone to show me that. Secondly, I would like to add, sorry, 1 second, I wrote a few notes down here. I'm 1 block away from 5 motels on Atlantic Avenue. I had no idea what I was doing was wrong. I figured since there were hotels literally 1 block away from my house, all of which are drug infested, and the police are there every day, full of noise complaints, all the transient issues that the city previously argued of why my position is irreparable harm. So that those 5 motels are within 1 block of me. And I did have the proper insurance I was supposed to have. And the city of Volusia County has been collecting taxes on every booking that I had. So the taxes were paid. The insurance was held. And I was, like I said, 1 block away from 5 hotels. So I had no idea I was doing anything wrong. And once I was notified of that, I stopped. Furthermore, I'm not an investor or anything like that. I have a lot of health issues. I lost my job, and this was the only way I could pay my mortgage. And then I did that for 2 months, and the city notified me saying I can't do that, and I stopped doing it. So I would challenge the position that irrevocable harm was done to the city or neighborhood or anyone else. And then also the city said that I had financial gain. When they found out, I had no financial gain. All the money went to pay the mortgage and 0 profit was made. So I would request if I could not have any fine, because I can't even pay my mortgage as is. And I was doing all this just to keep my family in their house, but clearly I can't even do that. So that's my position, and I hope I'm able not to have a fine today for this circumstance.
Okay. Mr. Yates, you indicated that in the information you provided, that this property had been advertised previously and that there were reviews?
Yes. There are 3 reviews. They're right there.
Okay. And so it was not just simply a posting, but it was an actual...
Correct. They had stays in January, February, and April.
Okay. And under city code, those stays should not have occurred.
Correct.
Okay. So there was income that was realized by doing something, and it's just, this is what I had decided, that there has to be some minimum, because nobody wants to pay a fine. And unfortunately, I have, as I don't know, Mr. Garcia, if you had heard this before, the city had initially had been asking for $15,000 for each matter, and I felt that there were different circumstances, but at some point, one just has to draw a line and say, these are similar cases, and
I would challenge that. I'm the only non-investor Airbnb case you've had. I mean, I live in the home. We would rent out the house for a week and go stay at a hotel and then come back. So this is my primary residence. And I would say that this case is different in that sense.
I understand, Mr. Garcia, but I believe that the city has a fairly comprehensive rules regarding rental of properties. If it's a long-term rental, it falls within the scope of the long-term rental ordinance. If it's a short-term rental, and there are places within the city that short-term rentals are allowed, then they have to be licensed under a short-term rental license.
Correct.
And if it's a business, then they have to go through all the business license. You missed all of them. You're basically saying that you fall outside the scope of any regulation when the city has a comprehensive regulatory system. And so I hear you, I understand you, but at some point I have to look at it as trying to impose some type of consistency on this matter, and the $1,000 fine for even lower offenses where people take action quickly, I felt is appropriate. And in this case, where there have already been rentals, you're not somebody who just started this. It's been on the internet for, I guess, a while. And so, again, I'm going to stick with consistency in this matter, and there will be a $1,000 fine that I will be imposing. Therefore, let me see, where's my agenda? Case number 3, RTL 06-2343, respondent being Brandon Garcia. I find the respondent to have been non-compliance of Article 4, Section 4.1.a, and Article 5, Section 5.2.8.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibit short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals, and that such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and the damage surrounding neighborhood occurs at the time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D Florida statutes for the property at 2016 North Oleander Avenue, and to have subsequently come into compliance on May 30th, 2023, and hereby order the respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $1,000 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again, and that for any future repeat violation, the respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. Mr. Garcia, are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay. And I have imposed a fine, but I think it's also important for you to understand that the fine constitutes essentially a lien on the property. I think Mr. Jackson can speak to that. That is something that runs with the property. And Mr. Jackson, you might want to enumerate a little bit more on that, since if Mr. Garcia seems to be indicating that he may not have the funds immediately available to reconcile this matter.
Certainly, and Mr. Garcia, no one's really looking past, or certainly I'm not looking past your expression of hardship. I understand that. One of the things to understand concerning a code lien is that there's two impacts. One is that it's going to apply against the property that you currently own and any other property, well, any property you own, but it applies against the residents where it's been imposed. So that would just be a lien on the property. If it's not paid, we would have the right after 90 days to try and foreclose on it. There's not a long history of the city trying to foreclose on a $1,000 lien, but it would be a lien that will affect, obviously, if you're trying to get loans and things like that on your house. So at some point you'd have to take care of it, but understand that it's not something that has an immediate impact or or anything you get collection letters over. Is that understood? You still there?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, just want to make sure we communicate.
All right. Well, thank you. All right. We now move to item 6, miscellaneous business. Is there any miscellaneous business?
No, sir.
Okay.
No?
Therefore, it being 10:02, I hereby call this session of the special magistrate hearing on July 25th, 2023 to be adjourned.